Hi, it's Crazy Monkey here. So I'm just hiking in the forest mountain range, the Watauga mountain range, here in Salt Lake, Ogden, here in Utah, where I live. And it's just a beautiful day. It's about 50 degrees, mid-November. All the leaves are off the trees, getting ready to be winter in just a few weeks. There's a little snow at the higher parts of the mountains. And hopefully within a few weeks we'll have a lot of snow and ski season will begin, and hopefully it'll be an epic ski season. So anyway, I'm just going to hike down into this river valley, dried up river valley, and that connects to a trail over there. And as I go, I just want to do a blog update real quick. And this blog update is important, so I hope a lot of people watch it because it's going to be really important. So I'm going to talk about my views. You know, a lot of people say, they've called me like right-wing extremist, which is not true at all. I'm actually fairly moderate in my political views. You know, when it comes to immigration, for example, I just think immigration should be cut. I don't think it should be eliminated. I think it should be cut like 50%, so immigrants can assimilate better into our country. You know, I think illegals that have been here for like 20 years, 10 years, and they have family here, and they're following the law, they should be allowed to stay. They should not be allowed to vote, but they should be allowed to stay, I do believe. You know, I believe the wall should be built because we need to secure the border. You know, I don't think that's a right-wing extremist position. You know, the people from south of the border, even when the wall is built, they can still come here. They just have to go through a checkpoint. They can still visit their family here. They just have to go through a checkpoint. You know, if migrants need to work at jobs, and as long as they have the permits, they just go through checkpoints and they go work in those jobs. If they want to see their family, they just go through the checkpoint, show their ID, and then they can come right into the country and see their family. You know what I'm saying? So I don't consider that to be an extreme position at all. I think it's about security. You know, it's about securing the border and securing, you know, it's about crime prevention. It's about knowing who's coming and who's going. And as for my position on the H-1B visa, you know, there's a lot of abuse on the H-1B visa where they're just firing Americans by thousands, and then they just hire thousands of foreigners with H-1B visas. And I just think that that's ridiculous. I think if they're going to have the H-1B visa program, it needs to be, you know, if they have 10 openings and they want to hire 10 foreigners for those 10 openings, you know, and they can't find an American to do it, then that's fine. You know, if it's difficult for them to get Americans to do the jobs and they need to hire foreigners for the job openings for the H-1B visa, that's okay. But when they just fire like 100 Americans and replace them with 100 foreigners at like half the wages the Americans made, that's what I'm against. So I think the H-1B visa program needs to be reformed, and the numbers need to be cut in half, and it just needs to protect American workers so American workers aren't getting fired and replaced like was what they're currently doing. That's what I'm against. You know, if there's a lot of jobs in tech, there's a lot of jobs in medicine, and they need more people to do those jobs, and bringing them in with H-1B visas is acceptable, but firing Americans to replace them with cheaper immigrants, that's what I'm against. So I don't consider that, you know, a right-wing position at all. I consider that just common sense. Another of my positions is like a woman should be a stay-at-home housewife. You know, I took some heat for that one too. But the thing is, I only said that when she has children. You know, when she has a baby, when she has young children, she should be a stay-at-home housewife. Once those children are in high school, then if she wants to get a career going, get a job going, that's totally cool. That's totally cool. I'm totally cool with that. I just think women should stay at home and be stay-at-home housewives when they got young babies, young toddlers, young children. They need to take care of those children, make sure those children, you know, succeed at life. And that's all I'm saying. And then once those children are successful and they're in high school and they're doing good, then she can get her career and get her job. You know, that's perfectly okay. So I don't consider that to be a right-wing position at all. I think it's just common sense. You know, so I just want to say those few issues. Another issue is taxes. You know, I support tax cuts because taxes are way too high. You know, when you're paying almost 50% to the government, that's way too much. Shouldn't be 50% to the government. So taxes are way too high, so taxes need to be cut. You know, I support the NRA. I support First Amendment, which used to be totally moderate positions. You know what I'm saying? Now it's like people think you're a radical because you support the First Amendment, you support the Constitution, you support the NRA, you support the Second Amendment, and they think that's radical. It's not radical. 20 years ago, that was just your average American, you know what I'm saying? That was your average American. Liberal, conservatives alike, you know? And now it's like these radical leftists are making it like if you support the Second Amendment, you're some radical, when you're not. You're just a moderate American, you know what I'm saying? So I just want to say that real quick. Try and think some other positions. You know, on a lot of positions, I'm actually quite liberal. I support legalized weed. I support, first trimester abortion. If the woman gets a first trimester abortion, I support that. I don't like it, but I support it. You know what I'm saying? I support her right to do that. And then I support gay marriage. But again, I'm vehemently against like drag queen story time hour, where they're teaching these 4-year-olds, to be drag queens. I'm vehemently against that. So again, are these positions really that crazy? No, 10 years ago, those positions would have been considered liberal positions. You know what I'm saying? And now these crazy leftists, these radical Antifa leftists, they say I'm right wing, when in reality my positions 10 years ago would have been considered liberal positions, moderate liberal positions. You know what I'm saying? So I just want to talk about how our country's going socialist, and how these radical leftists and these communist universities are basically destroying our country. I want to talk about that, because it's like, you look at these Democrat candidates like Elizabeth Warren and Bernie Sanders, and it's just crazy. I mean, it is just crazy, their proposals. What they want to do is just crazy. And, it really shows the future of this country if we keep going in this direction. And, one of the things I want to say is that, to all the middle-class people out there, people like me, that are, homeowners, maybe you're a small business owner, and you're somewhat middle class, like me, we need to protect ourselves. I mean, we need to protect ourselves, because when these leftists take over, the thing is, a lot of these leftists, a lot of these liberals, like these millennials that are voting for the socialism, voting for these Bernie Sanders candidates, voting for, Elizabeth Warren, these people are going to become very, very poor with the socialism. They're going to get their free college degree paid for. They're going to get their student loans forgiven. They're going to get free daycare for their children, so they can throw away their baby, throw away their toddler in the free daycare. They're going to get all this free stuff. But what they don't realize is their taxes are going to go higher and higher and higher. Their wages are going to go lower and lower and lower. And they're going to become very poor. They're going to become very poor. As mass immigration, as 100 million immigrants flood into our country over the next 10, 20, 30, 40 years, that's going to cause the house prices to double and triple. And a lot of these millennial renters, they're going to be made dirt poor. They're going to be living in studios for like $2,000 a month. They're going to be working 70 hours a week. And the thing is, they're voting to be poor. They're voting for their own destruction. They're voting for policies that are going to make them poor. They're voting for free daycare for their kids. They're voting for free college education. They're voting to have their student loans paid off. And all of these policies are actually going to make them poor. They're actually going to become very poor. They're voting for mass immigration. That's going to cause the rents to double, triple, cause the house prices to double, triple, because of all the new people that need housing, because they're not building enough housing, so the house prices are skyrocketing nationwide because of mass immigration. And as these millennials, the whole millennial mindset is crazy, because they basically bitch and complain about income inequality, how they're so poor, but then everything the millennials are doing makes income inequality more and more extreme. They vote for the Democrats. That makes income inequality more and more extreme. They're voting for policies that are going to make them poorer and poorer. They're voting for policies that make their wages go lower and lower. They're voting for policies like mass immigration that makes house prices go higher and higher. And they're renters, so they're going to get screwed with that. They're voting for the mass immigration policies that are going to make their rents go through the roof, meaning they're going to have to pay more for rent. So they're basically voting for their own destruction. They're voting for their own economic demise. They're voting for their own economic slavery and their own economic poverty. They're going to wind up working 70 hours a week, a lot of these millennials that are voting for the socialism stuff. They're going to wind up working 70 hours a week, living in a studio, paying $2,000 a month for the studio in some big, huge city like San Francisco, desperately trying to stay afloat. You know what I'm saying? And what us middle-class people got to do, especially us middle-class conservatives, what we got to do is we got to protect ourselves. So if you own a house, that's great. That's real good. If you can turn the basement into a unit for rental income, that's really good. If you can get some dividend stocks, use those dividends to go skiing in Switzerland, that's great. That's really good. We need to basically strengthen our positions as middle-class conservatives, because we're going to be surrounded by a bunch of poor people on this Democrat slave plantation, voting for these policies that make them poor and poor and poor, while these corporate CEO types and these big government types get richer and richer and richer off the socialism. And it's just really important for us conservative middle-class people to basically just, get some good stocks with dividends, buy a house, turn it into a duplex, get some rental income, get some passive income, and just try to protect your financial situation as much as you can, because you don't want to wind up being poor like this new slave labor poverty group of leftists that are basically just going to be turned into like wage slaves. They're going to be working 70 hours a week. A lot of them, like 80-90% of these young people, 80-90% of these new immigrants, they're literally going to be turned into these like wage slaves, where they're going to be working like 2 and 3 jobs, 70 hours a week, living in a studio, living in a 1-bedroom apartment. That's literally going to be their life. And they're going to keep voting for Democrat socialist policies that make them poor and poor and poor. So as this is happening, it's so important, us middle-class conservative people, we don't let that happen to us. You know, you don't want to be a renter. You don't want to be a renter. You know, you don't want to be a renter. You want to make sure you have like a property, and you turn that into a duplex, like a single-family house. Get the basement finished off. That's what I want to do. I want to finish the basement, get rental income. You got to protect yourself with rental income. You got to protect yourself by buying a single-family house. You got to protect yourself by getting some stocks with good dividends. You can use those dividends to go skiing. Use those dividends to go to the golf course. You know, we need to protect ourselves. All right. And these people that are voting for socialism, they're going to get wrecked. A lot of these people, a lot of these new immigrants, it's very sad. They're voting for socialism 70-80% of the time. These young millennials, 70-80% of the time, they're voting for socialism. And these people are just going to get wrecked. They're going to become renters for life. They're going to work 70-80 hours a week, paying $2,000 studio apartment rents. This is the system they're doing. They've already done it in San Francisco. They've already done it in LA, New York, and they're doing it nationwide. Nationwide, this is the system. This is the future. And it's just so important for us middle-class conservatives not to let that happen to us. We have got to just be strong. We got to be in a good economic position, buy a house, get some rental income, get some dividend stocks. You know, make sure you have enough money for your ski vacations. And just remember, it's not our fault these millennials are poor. A lot of them, 70-80% of them are going to be dirt poor. It's not our fault, you know. It's not our fault that there's going to be a lot of leftists, and there's going to be like hundreds of millions of dirt poor people in America voting for the left, and they're screaming because they're so poor. It's not our fault. They did it to themselves. They voted for it, and they did it to themselves. And that's all I want to say. So if you're a middle-class conservative like me, I just want to say, protect yourself. Buy a house, get some rental income, protect yourself, get some dividend stocks. Now is the time to get your positions good. Now is the time to protect yourself. That's all I want to say in this blog update, folks.